Growing up, I attended a Catholic private school in Northeast Minneapolis. I never quite understood why my parents wanted me to attend this private Catholic school, since there was a public school right down the street from my house. And I think when I look back on it now, it wasn't only the religious aspect, because they were both very devout Catholics, but it was also that they wanted to shelter me somehow from the public school, everything that was associated to public schools that wasn't necessarily good.
But sometimes there's gaps. You know, they've missed some point. You know, if they've missed school, if they haven't been here for whatever reason, maybe they haven't done the homework, but for whatever reason, sometimes there's some gaps. So they might be able to read, but their comprehension skills might not be there yet, just because they've got some gaps there. But like I said, I wouldn't say that's a blanket statement, but sometimes that's what we see, because it's really out of their control. Like they have not said, oh, I don't want to go to school today. It's just been a matter of circumstances. So I feel like that's really hard. Also, you know, for first grade, you want them to get a strong foundation. You know, build up those reading skills. Really, they should be readers by the end of first grade. And so if they're missing a lot of first grade, it's really hard, because then the next year they start behind. So I feel like it's so important that they're here and really getting those strong skills, that strong foundation, so that they can move on and be successful the rest of their years in school.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't say it's so much the financial piece, but I would say just the different levels. I mean, by this point in first grade, there is such a spectrum of learners.
They don't have anything to do with finances.
Not at all.
Not
at all. I would say, you know, sometimes in the lowest group, there might be a couple kids that are, you know, that are having a hard time, you know, that their families might be struggling.
Because of circumstances.
Absolutely. But that's not a for sure thing, and not always. And a kid that has every advantage in the world could also be in that group. Just, it is so important to not make generalizations based on any sort of economic status, because, you know, they really are. They're all here in first grade, ready to learn, and they surprise you every day. So,
really, some of my parents I see them more involved a little bit with their kids, with their homework and that type of thing. Okay, so some of those students, and not everyone, but they get more help at home, and sometimes it's that the parents, you know, maybe can help the student at home. You know, maybe they don't understand, there's a language issue, that type of thing, with maybe some of my other students, you know. But absolutely, I mean, I can take kids, you know, Ruth and I in 2nd grade, we did quite a few field trips this year. The Science Museum, Mill City Museum, the History Center. And some of the students had already been to those places. As far as their learning behavior, I'm not going to say that they're any different.
Yes.
Okay, within my classroom. I mean, because they know what I want, and they know what their expectations are, and I don't see their learning behavior any different. I mean, the level, you know, I might have some students that come back, and a few students and never return homework.
Yeah.
Okay? So they don't have that reinforcement of, let's say, the math lesson that I taught. Okay. And you know, you've been in my classroom, you know who those students are, I'm pretty sure. And that's when I just try to sign up for different tutors, you know, to give those students some extra time, because I know they're not getting it at home.
Okay.
And that's where you just try to, but I don't see their behavior really, I couldn't say that their behavior is like this because of their
reading level or something like that. Do you notice a difference or between those different groups?
I don't, as far as that type of thing. But what I do notice is, you know, I mean, I have a lot of English language learners, okay? So, but they love to read, and boy, they just have taken off this year. So many of my students, you know, that came in at lower levels. And no, I really don't. It's amazing how quickly students learn another language.
Yeah.
And I have a few students whose parents don't speak very very little English at home. And they are doing phenomenal. Yeah.
So between the two different groups, as far as all that stuff goes, at this age, it's very much like a kind of a level playing field.
It really is. I mean, I certainly have some students who are from within the neighborhood, and I mean, that live in the neighborhood too, but their reading levels, that doesn't mean that they have high reading levels. You know, every child's different.
Right, exactly. I mean, because you said you used to teach in Apple Valley, which is definitely more suburban, and probably a little similar to your childhood experience. I mean, not completely,
it is.
But
you're right.
What's the biggest difference you notice between working there and working here?
Oh wow, the largest difference is the amount of support staff. Okay, the amount of support staff. I mean. Last year I had, I believe four special education children in my classroom. I didn't have an assistant. Now, had I been in Apple Valley with 4 kids, EBD and things like that, I would have had for sure at least 1 or 2. I'd have 2 different assistants.
That is.
It's money. It's got to do with money. It all comes down to, unfortunately, it all comes down to money and how much money each district, because it's not a level playing field.
No.
Okay, as far as the amount of money each district, because it's on taxes, the amount of money each district gets per student. So yeah, there's a big difference. There's a big difference in, and that's not gonna get. It's not gonna get better here.
Well, for the most part, my elementary school experience was the berries of my life. I just remember it was a great time and very few bad memories, but every once in a while when I look back and I think about, you know, how public schools work and just think about my own experience, I always remember this one story. There was this kid in my class in 3rd grade. It was either 2nd or 3rd grade. I think it was 3rd grade, and his name was Julius. And he was African American. He had moved probably from a city. And I just remember, you know, he didn't have a lot of money. It was clear. He wore kind of the same clothes every day, and I had seen where he lived, and it wasn't the best neighborhood of town. And he was such a good student, and he was very bright. And I always liked to read with him because, I mean, I was an okay reader myself, but I just always looked up to him. I thought he was always the better student. And there was this time in the middle of our school day, it was called R&R, Reading and Relaxation, and we were expected to have a book already from home. I remember, you know, a lot of the kids, their parents, it was kind of a big deal. Like, you would go out and buy a book, or you would have your parents take you to, like, a nice library in town and get the book. Like, everyone was so excited about getting their books. And the kids who didn't have a book had to grab their book out of a bin, like a communal bin. They would have to grab them out of this bin, and they were really torn apart, and they weren't nice books, and it just wasn't very fun. And for some reason that year, the only kid who had to keep grabbing them out of that bin was Julius. Everyone else seemed to always have their own books, except for him. And she would say, okay, 3rd graders, grab your books, but then she would always make a point of saying, now Julius, you come back with me. And she and he had to keep, you know, going to the back of the class. He was a great student and probably should have gone to an amazing college and done great things. I guess I'll never really know if he did.